You need to calm yourself right now. You're disturbing everyone on this aircraft.
Don't you tell me to calm down. I paid for this seat, and I will not be talked to like a child.
Then show the respect this crew and these passengers deserve, or I'll have you removed when we land.
Dare.
Don't touch me. The words tore through the quiet cabin, sharp and venomous. Gasps followed as every eye turned toward the woman in seat 1A, draped in diamonds, trembling with rage. Across from her, the black flight attendant stood frozen, a tray shaking slightly in her hands. No one spoke. No one moved. Then came the click, a phone camera recording, capturing what money could no longer hide. Power, prejudice, exposure. This isn't just turbulence at 30,000 feet. It's a reckoning. Because everyone feared the millionaire's wife. Until the truth took flight. Welcome, story lovers. From where are you watching? Hit the like button and drop your city name in the comments so we can see how far our story travels. It was supposed to be another seamless morning flight. First-class passengers, champagne smiles, and quiet skies above the Atlantic. For years, Aisha Monroe had worn her navy blue uniform with pride, greeting each traveler with the same warmth, no matter who they were or what they looked like. But on this flight, something felt different. The kind of stillness that hides a storm. Aisha had worked for the airline long enough to recognize power when it walked down the aisle. And today, power wore diamonds. Mrs. Charlotte Venshire, wife of one of New York's wealthiest developers, entered the cabin like she owned the sky itself. Her arrival made the other attendants straighten their backs. Even the pilot offered a nervous nod. People feared her, whispered about her, and smiled in her presence for reasons that had nothing to do with kindness. Charlotte was known for her standards, the kind that divided people into those she considered worthy and everyone else. She traveled often, invariably first class, always with an air of untouchable entitlement. To most, she was elegance personified. But Aisha had seen behind that mask, the tight jaw, the impatient glances, the way her eyes changed whenever they landed on someone who didn't fit her definition of privilege. Still, Aisha remained professional. She'd seen her share of arrogance before. Her job was to serve, smile, and survive the moments that tested her patience. Yet deep down, she knew this flight would be different. The energy around Charlotte wasn't just cold, it was cutting. Some passengers sensed it too. Conversations hushed when Charlotte raised her voice. Even the co-pilot avoided eye contact as he passed by. Aisha kept her composure, quietly observing. But when Charlotte's gaze locked on her, slow, assessing, dismissive, Aisha felt a chill travel down her spine. Something was about to happen. Something that would expose what money couldn't hide. And this time, Aisha wouldn't look away. The flight began smoothly, at least on the surface. Passengers settled in, engines hummed, and sunlight spilled across polished seats. Aisha moved gracefully through the aisle, her smile steady even when her mind wasn't. Years of experience had trained her to anticipate trouble before it started. And trouble usually began with the same people who believed the rules didn't apply to them. Charlotte Venshire sat in seat 1A, draped in a white silk shawl that shimmered under the cabin lights. Every movement she made demanded attention. Her perfume filled the air, heavy and commanding, a reminder that her presence was something to endure rather than enjoy. She clicked her glass against the tray. "Champagne?" she said flatly, not looking up. Aisha nodded, keeping her tone even. "Of course, ma'am." But as Aisha poured, Charlotte's eyes darted to the gold badge pinned to Aisha's uniform. Her lips twitched. "I thought premium attendants were supposed to have a certain—" "Look," she murmured, just loud enough for those nearby to hear. A few passengers glanced up, uncomfortable. Aisha's hand tightened on the bottle, but she said nothing. Years of professionalism told her silence was safer. Moments later, Charlotte called her back. "This isn't chilled enough," she said sharply. "Bring another. And please, next time, try not to spill. I can't afford stains." There was no spill, but that didn't matter. Charlotte wasn't correcting service. She was performing and testing boundaries and proving dominance. Each word chipped at Aisha's calm, each insult measured to sting but not shock enough for others to intervene. As the hours passed, the tension grew thicker than the air outside the cabin windows. Charlotte complained about her seat, about her meal, about the attitude of the crew. When another flight attendant offered to assist, Charlotte smiled sweetly. "No, I'll wait for her," she said, pointing toward Aisha. "She seems eager to learn." It wasn't just racism wrapped in politeness. It was cruelty dressed as power. Aisha could feel eyes on her, some sympathetic, some indifferent. The unspoken rule on flights was simple: keep the peace at all costs. But peace felt like silence. Silence that burned. Halfway through the journey, turbulence shook the plane. Passengers gripped armrests. Aisha steadied herself. But Charlotte snapped, "Do something about this!" as if Aisha could command the sky. The absurdity might have been funny if it weren't so venomous. Then came the final straw. Charlotte reached for her purse, pretending to look for something. "I just don't feel safe," she roared. "People these days, you never know what they might do." Her eyes landed on Aisha as she spoke. The implication was unmistakable. A ripple of discomfort swept through the cabin. Aisha's throat tightened. But this time, she didn't back down. Her voice stayed calm, but her tone carried steel. "Ma'am, I assure you, your safety is my priority." "As it is for every passenger," Charlotte smirked. "We'll see about that." Unbeknownst to her, another passenger, a quiet man in business class, had started recording. He had seen everything. And in that moment, as the lens captured the exchange, Aisha felt the shift. The kind that only happens when truth finally decides to stop hiding. The confrontation erupted somewhere above the clouds. Charlotte had grown bolder, her cruelty sharper with every passing minute. When Aisha approached to check on her seatbelt, Charlotte suddenly raised her voice, loud enough for the whole cabin to hear. "Don't touch me," she snapped. "You people always think you can get too close." The words sliced through the air. Passengers froze. A child turned to look. Even the hum of the engine seemed to fade. Aisha stood still, her heart hammering against her ribs. She had endured whispers, insults, and veiled jabs before, but this was different. This was public humiliation, wrapped in racism and broadcast for an audience. Then came the moment that shattered the illusion of her power. The man recording stood up. "I got that on camera," he said quietly but firmly. His voice carried more truth than Charlotte's money ever could. A few passengers nodded, murmuring in disapproval. Charlotte's face paled. "Delete that," she demanded, her voice trembling. "You can't," but it was too late. The camera was still rolling. Aisha didn't move, didn't flinch. For the first time, Charlotte's arrogance met silence, not submission. The kind of silence that exposes rather than protects. The pilot's voice came over the intercom, breaking the tension. "Cabin crew, please take your seats for landing." But everyone knew the descent had already begun. Charlotte's, not the plane's. The truth was now in the air, and it couldn't be taken back. Dear audience, where are you watching from? Drop your city name in the comments. When the wheels touched down, the world had already changed. The video spread before passengers even stepped off the plane, shared from seat to seat, screen to screen, until it reached far beyond that cabin. Within hours, millions had seen it. The trembling arrogance of a millionaire's wife, the quiet strength of a black woman who refused to shrink. Aisha didn't seek fame. She only wanted dignity, the right to be treated as human, even at 30,000 feet. But her courage sparked something bigger. Airlines issued statements. News outlets replayed the footage. People debated, protested, and reflected. What had once been whispered behind closed doors was now undeniable proof of how power disguises prejudice. Charlotte Venture's empire of fear began to crumble. Sponsors cut ties. Invitations disappeared. Her wealth couldn't buy silence anymore. The same cameras that once adored her now captured the truth she'd tried to bury. And Aisha? She kept flying. Not because she had to, but because she wouldn't let hate ground her. Colleagues looked at her differently now, not with pity, but with respect. She'd faced the storm and stood tall. Still, the victory felt heavy. Because for every story caught on camera, countless others weren't. Stories silenced mid-flight, in offices, on streets, in schools. So the question lingers. How many more times must someone be humiliated before the world finally learns? Thanks for watching. Subscribe for more powerful true stories that deserve to be heard.